If you've drunk a lot of whiskey, you're probably in the mood for something like a hidden gem. These are whiskeys that are sometimes overlooked because they're maybe from a small producer, or it's a kind of a variant of a very popular whiskey, so it doesn't get the love it deserves. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and today I'm going to tell you about 5 hidden Irish gems. These are great little whiskies that should be very easy to find. When I was putting together this list of good whiskies that you could find, I made sure that these were widely available. These aren't going to be limited edition whiskies that you got to hunt for. These aren't going to be like unicorn whiskies. These are going to be enjoyable whiskies that you should be able to find pretty easily, pretty commonly, at least in Ireland, but you should be able to find them in most places around the world, but definitely not ones to overlook. First off, we've got this whiskey here from the Writer's Tears brand. You might be familiar with the Writer's Tears brand. They're quite a popular Irish whiskey brand, especially they've got a really good name. They recently redesigned their bottles and they do look kind of nice and kind of cool, but this one here isn't the regular Writer's Tears. This is the one that was finished in Inniskillen ice wine cask. It does come in at 46% ABV, so it isn't a cask strength whiskey, but has a lot of flavour from that whiskey. I'll put a link to the review that we did up there, but we really did enjoy this whiskey, and it is a batch product. Like, they do release batches of it. Like, the first time this was released, it sold out immediately. I didn't even manage to get a bottle of it, and then they decided to re-release it in batches, and I managed to get a bottle of it. I checked online on a few different Irish stores, and this is still available, so it's definitely one of those ones that is well available. But if you're not in the know, you might not want to try this one. You might not think to try this or to look for it, or if you see it on the shelf, you might say, ice wine, oh, is that going to be good? It is good. It is really good. It added a lot of flavour to the whiskey. It added a lot of like sweet, fruity notes that kind of went really well, because this here is a blended whiskey that has a lot of pot still and single malt whiskey in it. So it has that kind of sweet caramel from the malt, a bit of peppery spice from the pot still, and then with all those fruity sweet notes you get from the ice wine. It just made for a really, really great whiskey, and definitely one to look for. Next up is a brand that, if you've been watching my channel, you'll know about. It's Cologne, but for most people, they actually don't know about Cologne. Cologne are a tiny little distillery, and they produce some really, really nice whiskies. They're all limited edition so far. They're all in batches. This here is their rum and raisin. It is a sourced whiskey product, but they are finishing it in casks of rum that they make themselves and in PX sherry casks. So you get a nice kind of, well, rum and raisin influence into the whiskey. This is from, I will say, batch number 2, so this is an older style bottle, but they have got a new product. They have recently redesigned the bottle. It's kind of more similar to this shape. It's maybe just not as tall. It is 700ml, and it is fully available forever. It's going to be a core product, no longer a batch system. It's going to be available wherever you want it, and it's very, very widely available in Ireland, and I've seen it being shipped out to other countries as well, so very easy to find. This here is a cask strength whiskey. It comes in at 55%. This one here comes in at 55%, and the new version of it also comes in at 55%. So it has a nice bit of hit, a nice bit of weight to it, but it's super sweet. You get that PX sherry, the raisins, the kind of syrupy note to it, and then you get the rum, the brown sugar, the molasses, those flavors come in as well, and you get a really nice combination on top of that kind of classic bourbon aged whiskey where you get vanilla, butterscotch. It does remind me of like a rum and raisin ice cream, but just in a nice strong whiskey form. This is a fantastic little distillery. Always happy to support the Cologne brand, always happy to help them make more great whiskies. But if you're looking for something and you see this whiskey on the shelf, I'll put a picture of what the new bottle looks like up there. If you see that on the shelf, definitely one to try out, because even if you are a fan of Irish whiskey, you might not have heard of Cologne yet, and we need to fix that. Next up is another Irish whiskey brand that is maybe medium well known. Maybe it's known to fans of Irish whiskey, but not really known to people who aren't fans. J.J. Corey. But this one right here is the Hansen. This is a blend of grain whiskies, and I am on record, and I love a well-made grain whiskey. If you take a grain whiskey and you blend it with something else, it can be a great base where you can build other flavors on top of. This here isn't that. This is just grain whiskey, where it is the base, but is also the main event. It is a fantastic little whiskey. I think grain whiskey is criminally overlooked, and the Hansen is definitely one, because J.J. Corey, they put out a lot of kind of batch releases, and if you're looking at it, you might say, oh, I'll get one of their kind of more normal releases. I won't go for it's not even a single grain, it is a blended grain whiskey, and it's just a very nice whiskey that might get overlooked by people who are maybe snobs. Maybe some people think grain whiskey can't be good. They think grain whiskey is only good when you add something else to it, but no, grain whiskey is absolutely a fantastic style of whiskey if it's made well. I mean, at the end of the day, bourbon is a grain whiskey, rye is a grain whiskey. All whiskeys are technically made of grains, they're all grain whiskey. So if you have a well-made grain whiskey, it can be a fantastic little flavour pot, and this here is a great one. If you see J.J. Corey's The Hanson on the shelves, definitely want to get, because it's one of those ones that people's eyes will just pass by, but it's definitely a hidden little gem. Moving over to another brand, this one here though, the Liberator. They focus on malt whiskies. Specifically, it's not a single malt, this is a Irish malt, because it's a blend of malts from different whiskey distilleries. But their main claim to fame, the Wayward Company, their main claim to fame is not where their malt comes from. It's their port casks. They've got this one here, which is a tawny port. They've got a double port, which is tawny and ruby. They take peated whiskies and put them in port casks. So you get like the port and peat, I think they call it, port and peat. Very nice. They put out a lot of nice whiskies, and it's one of those brands that people haven't really heard about. This is, again, it's a batch product, but it's widely available now. They put out enough batches of it that you should be able to find it anywhere that good Irish whiskey is being sold. And it's one of those brands that people will look at it and go, that's a cool little bottle. Haven't heard anything about them, maybe we won't try it. But definitely not one to sleep on. Definitely a fantastic little whiskey if you like sherry and sherry port. If you, oh yeah, this is fantastic. I love a good port influence on whiskey, and this here is a fantastic port influence on whiskey. You get red berries, you get winter fruits, you get a little bit of dark chocolate, all on top of that caramel malt. When you're looking for good port finish whiskies, these are great because they've sourced fantastic port casks. They didn't just get regular casks that had port in it for a few years, throw the whiskey in and off they go. What they did was they found some really good port casks, and it shows in the kind of final product they've delivered, and that's how they differentiate themselves from other brands. So again, if you see this whiskey, don't pass over it. Fantastic little whiskey. Before I show off my final kind of hidden gem Irish whiskey, I'm going to give a quick honourable mention to this one right here. This is from Two Stacks. Two Stacks are getting pretty popular. I won't say that they are a hidden gem anymore. They've got their Dram in a Can, which is a little portable whiskey, 100ml of it in a can. Very, very popular. They got loads of different releases for all different countries internationally, but some people don't yet know or haven't yet tried the cask strength version of their kind of classic blend. It is 40% dark grain, 40% light grain, 8% pot still, 10% malt, 2% peated malt, and those aged in a variety of like bourbon casks and sherry casks, and it comes in at 65% alcohol by volume. It's 130 proof. That's quite high, but it has a lot of flavor, delivers a lot of kind of taste to it. So if you are aware of Two Stacks, you might not yet have tried that. It's just one. I'm going to give it a quick honorable mention, I'm going to put it away, but definitely one that I thought, this is very nice. Not a lot of people have tried about it, but a lot of people do know about it. So I'm going to go on to my last whiskey right now, and it's a whiskey that will be familiar to a lot of people, but maybe not this exact one. I did say I'd be talking about whiskeys that were skews or variants of popular whiskeys, and that's what this is right here. This is the Green Spot Chateau Léoville Barton. This is a fantastic Irish whiskey. If you are familiar with Irish whiskey, you've heard of Green Spot. Everyone's heard of Green Spot. It's oftentimes the first Irish whiskey that people try when they're looking for higher tier, top shelf Irish whiskey. They go for Green Spot. They don't always though know about the Chateau Léoville Barton. This is a fantastic one. It's the same whiskey that was then finished in a Bordeaux wine cask from Chateau Léoville Barton, and it comes in at 46% ABV, whereas the standard Green Spot comes in at 40%, which is the floor. Now, don't get me wrong, standard Green Spot delivers a lot of flavour at 40%. This here delivers a whole lot more at 46%. They do have a kind of I will say like a little series of these wine finishes. They've got this one, the Léoville Barton, they've got the Chateau Montelena, and they've got the Quail's Gate. I've tried all three. I wasn't really a big fan of the Quail's Gate. And the Chateau Montelena is lovely, but I think this one here is the best of the three. And if you're trying Irish whiskies and you see the spots, and you see the green spot, and you see the yellow, the blue, the red, sometimes the gold, you see a lot of them, you think, well, if I'm going to try another whiskey from the spot range, I'll get one of the older ones. I'll get the red, the yellow, or the blue. You might not try this one here because you think, oh, it's a wine cask. Is it going to be that different? Yes, it is very different, and it is very, very tasty. Definitely one of those hidden gems that's hiding in plain sight because it's available very, very widely. It's one of those products that they release in batches, but they've released enough batches of it now that it's kind of everywhere and have loads of it available. Definitely one not to sleep on if you like Irish whiskies. If you like Green Spot, you're going to really like this one because it's that whiskey just brought up another level. Higher ABV, extra cask influence, very, very tasty. So those are my 5 picks and an honourable mention for fantastic Irish whiskies that are hidden gems. But if you have any other recommendations for hidden gem Irish whiskies, let me know down in the comments below, because I'm sure other people who are looking to find those kind of secret, those kind of unknown whiskies would love to hear from you. Me though, I've got 5 great whiskies in front of me, so I'm going to choose one of them to drink next, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.